Mumbai flooded long before it rained. I know that sounds weird, but stay with me. Because this week, 13 people are dead. Flights grounded, trains struggling, expressways shut, cars submerged, dabbawalas suspended, legislature adjourned, and one of the most important highways in India, the Mumbai-Pune Expressway, blocked by over 100 tons of debris. And everybody is doing what they always do. The opposition is blaming the government is pointing at the rain doesn't care. But what if I told you the rain wasn't really the problem? What if it was just the day the bill finally arrived? Now, let me be clear. The rainfall this week was genuinely extraordinary. South Mumbai saw its wettest July day in 50 years. 5 consecutive days of triple-digit rainfall, a record that stood since the 1970s, was broken. This was not a normal monsoon week, and yet, here's what I can't stop thinking about. Extraordinary rainfall doesn't automatically produce extraordinary collapse. Those two things shouldn't happen always at the same time. One storm, and simultaneously, roads failed, railways struggled, hills gave away, stormwater drains overflowed, an expressway opened just 2 months ago was shut, homes collapsed, trees fell on a school bus, a chawl crumbled and killed 6 people. You see, 6 different systems, one storm. That is not weather. That is accumulated pressure meeting just 5 days of rain. Now here is what nobody says out loud. Mumbai was not built for 2026. Right. The Mumbai we depend on today was not designed for the city Mumbai has become. The drainage infrastructure was built for a different population. The road network was planned for a different era of traffic. The hills were developed for a very different understanding of risk. The wetlands that once absorbed rain have been steadily disappearing under concrete. Mumbai in 1970 had roughly 6 million people. 60 lakhs, that is. Mumbai today has over 20 million, 2 crores, and that is only the official population. The rain didn't change that much, however, but the city absolutely did. And here's the uncomfortable part. Every government inherits the decisions of the previous one. The drains, the permissions, the approvals, the hills that were cut, the mangroves that weren't protected, the projects that were delayed 10 years in a row. That is not the creation of one specific administration. It is the accumulation of many. Now there's one thing India, or rather Indians, genuinely do well. That is to respond. NDRF teams mobilize, police deploy thousands, engineers clear debris, chief ministers take calls, compensation is announced. This week in Pune, 100 tons of landslide debris was 70% cleared within hours. That is fast. That is real. But here's the question I want you to hold. Why is rescue always more visible than prevention? Japan sits on one of the most seismically vulnerable zones on Earth. Earthquakes arrive without any warning. Japan's answer was not to build better rescue teams. It was to build buildings that don't fall. Infrastructure engineered specifically to resist the disaster it would inevitably face. The Netherlands receives extraordinary rainfall across low-lying land. Their answer was not to rescue people from floods. It was centuries of engineering to stop the flood reaching people in the first place. Now, given that Mumbai's challenges are different, the density is different, the geography is different, the population pressure is unmatched, but the principle is still identical. Resilience is not built during the disaster. It is built long before it. Again this week, something quietly extraordinary happened. Mukesh Ambani's convoy was stopped by waterlogging. At the same time, the dabbawala who has delivered tiffins across Mumbai for decades suspended. The software engineer on work from home could not move. The daily wage worker could not afford to stay home. The student sitting in an exam moved through a flooded street. Normally in a city like Mumbai, money buys you options. Better car, security, faster route, backup plan. But when infrastructure fails at scale, those options disappear. Nature doesn't read your salary slip, and a flooded road doesn't care which part of the city you live in. The city failed uniformly. That's both the most democratic and the most damning thing about what happened this week. Now the politics, because it always arrives. The opposition is calling for accountability. They have pointed to Devendra Fadnavis, who famously takes credit for the road infrastructure he has built, and asked, where is the inframan now? The nickname inframan suddenly has a new context. Supriya Sule has raised questions about the Mumbai-Pune Missing Link, a project opened just 2 months ago that was closed this week. She has asked whether the structure was properly assessed for monsoon conditions. Those are all valid questions, but here is the fault lines observation. Every party is raising questions now. Not one of them has governed Maharashtra through a monsoon without similar situations and conversations. Congress governed flooding. NCP governed flooding. BJP Shiv Sena governed flooding. Mahavikas Aghadi governed flooding. Different logos, same drains, because here's what governance actually involves. Drainage systems don't get rebuilt in one term. Infrastructure decisions take decades to implement and decades to fall. Every CM opens flyovers. Nobody campaigns on underground storm drains because storm drains don't get you on the news until they fail. Now think about the last election you followed. There were debates about jobs, about identity, about inflation, about caste, about religion, about political alliances. When was the last time you heard a candidate lose votes because of inadequate stormwater drainage? When was the last time a party fell in the polls because they didn't upgrade slope monitoring on vulnerable hillsides? I am not saying that should be the only thing we vote for. I am saying there's a connection we rarely acknowledge. The systems that fail during disasters are largely invisible on sunny days. They are maintained or not maintained by governments we elect. And governments respond to what electorates demand. If disaster preparedness is never in our top 5 list of demands, can we be entirely surprised when it's never at the top of anyone's budget? That's not an accusation, it's just a mirror. 13 people are dead this week. By tomorrow, there will be another headline. By next week, another story. By next July, most of us will have forgotten their names. Every disaster begins with names. It often ends as a number. And somewhere between the name and the number is where the lesson disappears. We call these natural disasters. Many of them are. The rain this week was genuinely exceptional. But whether rain becomes an inconvenience or a tragedy depends almost entirely on decisions made long before the clouds arrived. Whether the hill was monitored, whether the drain was maintained, whether that home was in a vulnerable location, whether that expressway had been properly stress tested for monsoon. Those are not acts of nature. Those are acts of governance, of planning, and of priority. Mumbai didn't flood because it rained this week. Mumbai flooded because decades of decisions met 5 days of extraordinary rain. Nature wrote the first line. Everything that followed was written by us. You are watching Fault Lines. I am Abhijeet.